Oh, let's see. So we've got a very special speaker today. We've got Camille James Harman. I'm really excited to hear from her. You can do questions. We'd like to do questions at the end, but if you got a burning question you want to address right away, wave your hand and we'll jump in for that, or put it in chat and Emily will be watching the chat if it's an urgent one. Other than that, we'll do Q&A at the end. But we're really glad to have Camille here. Camille James Harman, MFA, is an actress and UFO experiencer with such credits as the Oscar-winning film Vice, the role of Mary Matalin in Shameless, the Lifetime movie A Daughter's Deceit, and numerous films, web series, commercials, and music videos. Harman was executive producer on the award-winning short film Toro de Oro in 1992. She won the Storer Boone Award in New Orleans for Best Supporting Actress in the Playboy of the Western World. In 2022, she won 3 International Best Actress Awards for the short film Tigerlily. In 1995, soon after moving to LA from New Orleans, Harman had her first UFO sighting. Oh, there we go. Now she's talking my language. I'm liking this already. Abduction experiences followed. She underwent hypnosis sessions with Barbara Lamb and Yvonne Smith, which revealed medical experiences with presumed aliens and human military, as well as military. Joe, I bet we've got something to talk to her about, don't we, Joe? As well as positive light beings of pure love. She also wrote for UFO magazine from 2000 to 2004, which allowed for her to meet many legendary UFO researchers. So we're very glad to hear from her today. And she's another one that was wrangled up for us by Risa Cohen. So yeah, so she's presenting Actress Abduction, Navigating the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as an Experiencer in Hollywood. Minnesota MUFON, she's presenting here for us for the very first time. Let's give a big round of applause to Camille Harman. Woo!
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm so excited. I'm a MUFON member here it's called the SoCal MUFON. And our illustrious leader passed away last year, Earl Grey Anderson. But we have a new leader, CJ Arabia, and we are having some virtual meetings as well. So it's been challenging lately, but it's very exciting living in Los Angeles and having access to a lot of people who live here who are experts in the field and such. So I'm just really blessed to be out here. But I'm excited to talk to you guys. You guys are my people. All right. So I just wanted to start. I'm going to try to share images. If it slows me down and makes me crazy, I'm just, because I have to size them and everything when I pick them, then I may show fewer pictures just to not stress myself out. I'm wearing my contacts and I don't see great with them. But anyway, so as we were saying, I started my life in New Orleans, and here we can share this one. I have to press share. This might slow me down too much. Okay, share. So I was living my life in New Orleans, having a good old time. I was going to the University of New Orleans and Mardi Gras balls and Anne Rice parties and just all the fun stuff that happened in the early and mid 90s back in the day. So that was my boyfriend Eric and me at the Bacchus Ball one year. And I had no interest in UFOs or aliens or anything at that time. So that was my first one. And then shortly before we moved, I read this Whitley Strieber book that I was compelled to purchase. I'm one of those people who was compelled to purchase a Whitley Strieber book. Have you guys heard of that? It's a thing where you see the book on the shelf and the alien face and you're like, oh my God, I have to buy this book. So I was one of those people. And I bought his book Breakthrough and read it right before moving to LA and was blown away. So that was my first awakening to the subject matter and the immense, complex interconnectedness of abduction and secret government stuff and all of it. So we moved to Los Angeles in September 95, and we had this really great house in Los Angeles, in Silver Lake, if you've ever been out here, the Silver Lake neighborhood. And it was on a hill. I remember picking this rental home because of the amazing view from our house over the city, it was up on a hill and we could see all this sky. And I remember saying, this is a great house for seeing UFOs. Ha, ha, ha. Little did I know. So everything was going okay. And I had an agent and I was all excited to, go to the next level in my career, and my boyfriend as well. We were both actors. We had just come off of doing Richard III together. He was Richard and I was Lady Anne, so we felt like we were hot stuff. So everything was going great, but then I noticed I had some weird anxiety, and I stopped having my menstrual cycle. And now that I think back, when we drove to LA from New Orleans with the U-Haul and the dog and the whole thing, we actually went to Sedona area and we spent the night at Oak Creek camping. And I'm like, did something happen at Oak Creek, Sedona? Anyway, so in December of 95 in LA, when we had just been there like 3 or 4 months, we had our first sighting, both of us, walking the dog in broad daylight. And she was barking at a squirrel that had gone up a palm tree. That's the only reason we looked up. And we saw this UFO, and it was really high. It was black. It was very tiny to us, it was super high up. And I can't really make out the shape. I think it was a triangle, but it had like a blue shimmer around the edge of it. And so it was hard to make it out exactly. And it was just sitting there, and we had the palm tree for reference. So he kind of joked at me and he said, "You and your UFO book," And I looked at him. I was like, "Well, what if it is a UFO?" And then we looked back and it was gone. And then we got really excited because we had the whole view. We could have seen something moving, and there was nothing in the sky then. And so I actually handed him the leash and I ran home and I said, "I'm going to go report it." So I got home and there was a UFO hotline in the white pages in the LA phone book in 1995. And it was MUFON. So I called him up and I reported it, and Bill White, I think is his last name, he took my call and he said, "Hey, by the way, we have these monthly meetings if you want to come." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I am coming." So I started going to the MUFON meetings. I don't know if we had one in December, but maybe in January. But before all that, going to MUFON started, at the same time in December, I woke up twice in one night with sleep paralysis. And I've had that before in my life, but very, very rarely. But this night was really weird because I had sleep paralysis with other effects, and it was terrifying because I woke up in the bed. I remember the first time it happened, Eric was out in the living room watching a David Lynch movie that I didn't want to watch, Wild at Heart, I think it was. And I was sleeping alone, and I had the sleep paralysis, but at the same time, I heard an electronic sounding voice say my name in my ear to the left of me. Or not in my ear, but standing to the left of me, it sounded like. And it just said, "Camille," like that. And I was like, what the hell? And at the same time, I had a flash image in my mind, like a quick visual of a gun pointed at me. And I was like, what is happening? I'm hearing things. I'm seeing things. I can't move. This is definitely a new thing for me. I had never had anything all that going on at once. And then I came out of it, and then he came in and we went to sleep, and it happened again, but it didn't have all that with it. And I remember coming out of it crying, and I was so freaked out. And I remember I was so depressed between all these weird symptoms I was having, like no periods and anxiety and just like sore breasts, all these weird things. And I actually stayed up on New Year's. I didn't even go out. I watched the Learning Channel and the Discovery Channel UFO documentary marathons that were going on that year. And there was actually a documentary show with a person who had put a recorder under their bed and recorded an electronic voice saying their name. And I just about lost it. I was like, oh my God, what is going on this planet? So when I started going to MUFON, I quickly met Barbara Lamb. And I said, this was after a Kim Carlsberg lecture where I was so freaked out by Kim Carlsberg's presentation because she was a Baywatch photographer living at the beach in Malibu or Pacific Palisades. And she started getting abductions. And she had the pregnancy, which I was beginning to suspect had happened to me because my menstrual cycle had come back in January after all this weird stuff in December. So I met Barbara that night. And I said, I think I'm one of these people, and I think I want to schedule a regression with you and figure this out because I had this really weird night in December we got to look at. So we did that. And I had this full-on memory in the hypnosis that was so terrifying. I mean, I think I lost 2 pounds from sweating and screaming and chattering my teeth and being in a state of near shock, just remembering it all. But I had this light effect in my room, and then it turned into a blue columnar light that was like a it was different than a spotlight. It didn't flare out. It was like a solid light that seemed to have a bottom on it, if that makes sense. And when the bottom of this big circle hit me, I curled up into a fetal position. That's how I remembered it. And I started going up through the ceiling, and I was freaking out. And then the next thing I knew, I was flat on a table in this white, misty environment where I couldn't see any doors or walls. It was just white mistiness, light kind of all around me. And I was terrified. And I started saying, everybody's looking at me. Everybody's looking at me. And I was freaking out. And Barbara said, who is looking at you? And I didn't want to even look around the room. And she made me like, turn your head and what do you see? And I'm like, oh. And there was this row of beings that all looked alike. And here I'm going to share again. This is the drawing I made. I saw this row of white beings. And they seemed to me to all look alike and be thin and tallish. But I was looking at them sideways. And I'm 5'1", just to give you an idea what I think is tall. Is anything bigger than me. And they had long arms, they had the big black wraparound eyes, and they had some kind of emblem at their chest. It was like a circle and a triangle, or a triangle and a circle. I think it was a circle and a triangle, but I can't remember it exactly. And I was so terrified. And then they were saying, relax, relax, telepathically at me. And then there was a being, wait, let me do it in order. So Barbara said, what do these beings want? And I said, I have a baby and they want it. And then my knees started going apart and nobody was touching them. And that sent me into another level of hysterics. And there seemed to be a being she said, you can go up out of your body and remember it from below. So I did that in the session, which was kind of cool. I didn't know you could do that until she said you could do it. So I popped up and I watched from above, and there was a being I couldn't make out. I don't know, I was blocked from seeing it. And it was between my legs. And then I saw a flash of a speculum, like a gynecological tool. And it looked kind of like an egg whisk, but it was like a thing that had slats anyway, and some kind of a crank like an egg beater. And I knew, and that being, sure enough, put it in me and went and got something out of me. And when he took it out, I could see like a little something in there that was pinkish, that was, I don't know, like a walnut size-ish. It's hard to make out sizes because you don't see things like in real time like we see them. You see like flashes of things. It's weird. But I remember the being walking out of the room with it, and I was so bereft and devastated and horrified at having this all happen to me. And I just said, they didn't even let me see it. And I was so traumatized. I mean, you know, when a normal person has a normal trauma that everyone agrees is real, like being raped or a crime or whatever trauma, you know, death, car accident, whatever, you can get help in a way for that. You can prosecute someone, you can go to therapy, you can go to the hospital and get tests and all these things. When you have something that bizarre happen to you, and that was my first abduction memory. That was my, you know, it was like starting off with a bang for sure. But you don't know what to do because it's so intimate and weird, and you don't know where to go except to your therapist and say, you know, is this normal? And what do you think? You know, and Barbara gave me my little cassette, and she was like, yeah, this happens a lot. And I know it's hard. And, you know, I have support group meetings, and it's going to be a long road for you. And I understand you feel like your life is never going to be the same. And you're right. And I was like, yeah. So I went home with I'm going to unshare now. Okay, I can't do it. Okay, so the next thing that happened, let me just move along. So other things started happening during this time frame, and now we're moving into 1996. So I had a weird slice on my shoulder one morning, like a little incision on my shoulder, and it came from a dream about being bitten by a spider. I don't know what that was, but I would have this feeling of being bitten by a bee, or stung by a bee rather, like that kind of a feeling on that little slice. And then I would get a jolt of electricity down my arm, and then it would just go away. It was like a random thing that started happening. So that was kind of weird. I never did a regression to it. I had another grid mark pattern on my left shoulder, and that was weird because it was like a square with dots, and it appeared on my left shoulder, and I have no memory of getting it. My boyfriend just noticed it standing behind me when I was wearing a sleeveless shirt, took a picture. The next thing that happened was he had to go out of town back to New Orleans and shoot a show for a week. And so I was sleeping alone, and I woke up 3 mornings in a row at 4 a.m. sharp. And this was July. And I remember thinking, that's weird. I didn't hear any noises. And why is my digital clock saying 400 every day? What's going on? And I got in the tub to shave to go see my friend at the beach. And I had this triangle on my calf that was 3 pinpricks in a triangle. And I saw it and I went, that is some alien, that's some alien thing. I've seen it in a video or a book or something. And I've met like 4 or 5 people who've had that since then. But I was not happy. So I did set up another regression, but this time I went with Yvonne Smith, who is another regression therapist in the LA area, because I just wanted to experiment with different people. So we did a regression, and I really want to share pictures, and I don't know how to get back to the main thing. What is happening? It's just formatting in a different, I don't know what's going on. I just see all of you guys on the top bar. I don't see the control panel that says share. That's why I'm trying to figure out how to click the right thing. So when Yvonne put me under, I had a slightly different memory. I went in the blue beam out my window, which was weird because it was like, oh my God, I'm going out the window. And it felt like I could feel like a difference. Maybe it was just in my head, but it was like sticking your arm in a bucket of room temperature water. Like I felt something slightly different, but it was not that much. And in this one, I was in a room on a table, but it was more like a room. Like I felt like there might have been cabinets and doors, and it wasn't misty. It wasn't misty whiteness. And there was one doctor being that was, again, a tall, what I would call a white creature with the big head and the wraparound eyes, and wearing the white robes with the long sleeves and the high collar. But this one seemed taller. And then there were 3 little ones who I could only see the top of their heads, and they had wrinkly little heads. And they were repulsive to me, but this tall one was beautiful to me, which was weird. Like I kept staring at its long white fingers, and I was like, oh my gosh, it looks so beautiful. And but I was still terrified. And I was cussing at the little ones. And I said, you make me scared of little kids because you look like little kids, but you're not little kids. And I had recently had this experience. The reason I said that, I was substitute teaching, because you know when you're an actress, you do all these other things to make a living. And I remember these little 3rd graders one day had come around me and grabbed my arms, and they were walking me to a cabinet, and my whole body went into like this cellular memory of having little short people pulling me somewhere. And I was like, whoa, and I didn't freak out in the class, but it was familiar. It was like a deja vu. So I'm yelling at these little beings, and I said, I was yelling and cussing at them. And one of them came up and he put his little creepy hand on my forehead and started stroking me. And I said, get your hand off me, you little bastard, or what. I was cussing it out. But when it did that, it melted all my anger away. And I started to just chill and be subdued. And I said, and I was crying, but kind of whimpering. And I said, just do whatever you've got to do and let me go home. I was just like given over to whatever was coming. And the tall doctor one had this rack of stuff, like a dentist would have a light above you, like stuff in the ceiling area. And he had a wand that had like a tube, and he took this rack and he put the tip on the wand and then tapped it in my left calf where that mark was, the triangle. And it was real quick. I don't know what it was. It was like a little mark of triangle, like 3 little needles. But I don't know what that means or anything. So that was that. That was that memory. And so then I had that. I was like, oh, great. God knows what's happening next. And then the next thing that happened was I had gone to my dentist to get all my mercury fillings changed out to the pretty white ceramic fillings, I had this great dentist, good insurance with my job. And I loved them, except this one filling was bothering me. And I went back and I said, I love my new fillings, but this one hurts. And I had told him I was an abductee. I said, I'm an abductee. And, I read that sometimes abductees freak out in the dental chair because they have flashbacks. And I said, I've never had a problem with dentists. I don't think that'll ever happen with me, but I'm just telling you that in the future, if anyone freaks out in your chair, it might be why. And he said, well, I read a book about Roswell. So okay, lady. And I said, and you have to tell me if you ever find anything weird in my body. I told him that before, like on the other visits. So he's digging out my brand new filling. He says, I don't know why it hurts. The seal's good. I'm just going to dig it out and redo it. So he's redoing it. And he finds this chunk of something, as he described, dark charcoal gray, spherical or semi-spherical. And he's like grinding and grinding on it and giving me more and more shots. And he could barely budge it. And he finally showed me the thing with a mirror and his little scrapey thing. And he said, "You see this?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That wasn't there when I put this filling in, and I don't know what it is, and it's really hard. And what do you want me to do?" So I said, "Can you get me a chunk of it?" And he said, "No, it's so hard. I'm barely able to grind it, and it's going down the drain." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I just went Scarlet O'Hara, and I was like, "Well, I'll think about that tomorrow. Just fill it for now." And so he finished the filling, and it stopped hurting. And he did write me a whole letter, because I asked him later for a TV show to have a letter from him, and he did. And he said he doesn't know what it was. So I went and got regressed for this mysterious tooth thing. And I went to Barbara again for this one. And instead of having the blue light in this memory, I just came to on a table in a room that had cabinets and doors, and there were two men in there, like human men in lab coats with khaki pants and black shiny shoes. And it was very surreal because I felt drugged. Like with the aliens, whatever the aliens are, I always felt alert, but I just couldn't move my body. But with these guys, I felt like semi-conscious, And all I remember was they called me a troublemaker. And one of them took a syringe and stuck it through my cheek and squirted something into my jaw area up there. And then they rolled me down a hallway on a gurney, and it ended in this big hangar, indoor hangar. And there was a black helicopter. I know this sounds really cliche, but that's what I remember. And they put me in the helicopter lying down on the gurney. And I remember looking up, lying down, and the ceiling opened up, and it was a blue sky. It was super bright. I was like, ah! And we flew up, and they brought me home to my little neighborhood in Silver Lake, and there's a field in Silver Lake they landed in, and it's still there. I went recently, and it's still a field. And they just said, "Go home and take a nap." And that's all I remembered. I couldn't remember getting out. I couldn't remember going to my front door. So that really freaked me out. And I came out of that memory totally terrified. And Barbara said it was the first MILAB regression she had ever done. And her recorder, the tape cassette player thing, did not record it. I was so mad because I like to transcribe all my things. And so then I was paranoid. Like, did they interfere with your recorder? Can they do that? Because she said, "I swear I pressed record. I don't know what happened." So that was weird. And I had a whole different kind of fear because when you feel like you're in some military operation as a victim, a kidnapping victim, or whatever you want to call it, it's really scary because I thought my first thought was, "Oh my God, if that's real and that happened, then what else has happened that I don't remember?" That was the scariest thought. Like, oh my God, what a terrifying situation I could have been in some other thing I don't remember. Like, God knows what they did to me. And the betrayal of your own kind and not knowing how they got me. Like, I don't remember being picked up. How did they get me? And all of that. It's just a whole other level. So then in the meantime, I had gone to a healer who claimed to be able to stop abduction. And she did a prayer over me. And she said, "You signed contracts to work with these beings. You're a light being and all this. And we can sever the contracts." And I said, "Yeah, let's do that." She did a prayer. And it stopped happening. So that was good. But I was still obsessed with the subject matter, going to MUFON meetings, trying to figure this out, reading tons of books, watching shows, and going to David Icke lectures and just becoming like real conspiracy theorists down the rabbit hole. I also started saying things like humans this, humans that. And I thought, why am I talking like I'm not a human? Like, what's up with that? That's weird. And I said, "Barbara, I have this longing for beings, and I don't know who I miss. Like I miss some beings that I don't know. And I don't think it's the ones that had me on the table. Oh, by the way, I want to tell you the tall doctor being, this was important. In my memory, at one point, it sprouted antenna and I perceived it as a giant bug, like a mantis. And so it morphed. So I don't know its true form. I don't know what's up with that, but it looked like a big gray at first, and then it looked like a mantis. So just so you know. Um, so I went to her to get regress. I said, can we just do a session and say, you know, can we do a session and say, um, who does Camille miss? Like, is that possible? And she said, yeah. So we did this session and I had this full out of body experience where I remembered being put in this body and I had a panic attack. I was saying, I don't want to be here in this body. It's so weak. And I was crying and I felt like I was a sofa that was being stuffed in a pillowcase. And I had like claustrophobia and panic. And she said, well, go to when you felt good. Go where, get out of this and go into that. So I was out in the void and I was a blue orb and I couldn't see anything. No stars, just nothing at first. And then I saw two other orbs and they were my friends, Nicole and John. And I remember crying and recognizing them as my friends, Nicole and John, but they were visually blue orbs like me. And then I saw Earth and I didn't want to go to Earth. And I was like on the edge of a diving board, like, I don't want to go to Earth. And she said, well, why do you have to go to Earth? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, are there any, just ask, why do I have to go to Earth? Is anyone you can ask? And these huge white light, angelic things manifested. And they were so different. They were so huge. And they had a humanoid form within the light, but I couldn't really make it out. But they had like white robes. And I was just babbling. I was like, they're my home. They're my family. That's why I wear a white bathrobe. That's why I made my boyfriend a Lawrence of Arabia costume. I was going off on this immense energy and effect they had on me of merging and belonging and oneness and knowledge and like no time, just everything like all one and all time it was all in the moment of pure love and merging.
Say, Camille, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
In the
Two, just hit your
stop
escape
share.
on
There it is. Oh my God. Okay.
There it is. Okay.
Thank God. Thank you for stopping me. Okay. So back to my MUFON Minnesota photo collection over here. All right. Yes. So there's some things I can show you from what I just talked about. That would be helpful. I'm going to share a picture.
That's all right.
And now there's this other thing over it though. Okay, move. Anyway. All right. So that's the being that turned into the mantis. See the antenna and see the rack with the tips and the wand and then the long fingers. So that was that guy. Okay. And then here is an x-ray I had recently of the weird tooth thing. Now, can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Do you see in this? I wrote a circle around the tooth, but do you see this very light shadow of a dome in this one?
I think, yeah, people are saying yes. Yep.
Okay. That's what I think of as the anomaly in this tooth. Okay. So there's that. And then, okay. The letter from my dentist, okay, that he wrote on his stationery. And this was Beverly Hills Dental Center. My dentist's name is Dr. John Roxarzadeh. He now works in Las Vegas. But he described the whole thing. I do have a typed version, but this is the actual letter. And he says, as to the nature of spherical object at the very bottom, I am still unclear as to its nature. And he describes that whole thing. So that was helpful, right? Okay. And then what else related to that part of the story? Okay. Well, that's enough. Okay. So the next thing that happened, I got to finish telling you about the blue orbs because it was so cool. All right, let me do stop share again. So during this memory, when I was with the light beings, hold on. Okay. With the light beings. Here we go. Yes. With the light beings. light beings and us as orbs. Okay. Um, I said, why do I have to go to Earth? And the being said, to fight evil. And I said, oh, okay. Like, what do you want me to do? And then they said, tell people we exist and that we love them. And they gave me this image of sending love from God through them, through their arms. And I was one of them in this memory. I was like one of them doing this in some other version of myself. And they were showering the earth with love. And they said, we're always here doing this, but you guys are like walking around with umbrellas, was the image they gave me. And we're just trying to get you. And it was so beautiful. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? Like talk about you? And they said, act. And I said, really? Because Hollywood doesn't make stuff that's like, all about this, really. And they said, don't worry, we will set it up for you so that you meet people and make projects worthy of your time. And I said, oh my gosh, please, that would be awesome. So that was amazing. Okay. And I still act because of that experience. Like every time I want to quit, I just go, you know what? I'm on a mission. Okay, I stopped sharing. I figured that out again.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So the beings made me on a mission. They helped me feel like I'm on a mission, right? To use my acting and my public speaking, because they said the reason you're doing so many crazy jobs like catering and faux finishing and substitute teaching and is because you want to talk to as many people as possible. But if you use your acting, you'll reach more people. And it's not just through the subject matter, I believe. I think it's also due to my ability to do, public speaking and podcasts and documentaries and things like that, obviously as well. So then I also traveled a lot. So I went to England to see the crop circles, which was amazing. I was in the crop circles with Barbara Lamb, and I'm a Sting fanatic. Okay. So I went to Sting's house. He lives out there right by Stonehenge where all the crop circles happen. And I saw Sting in his driveway, which was weird because a little car went through and when the gate opened, and I'm like, looking up and there he is standing in the driveway. I was like, oh my God, he's right there. And so I have this connection with Sting. I don't know why. I was adopted on his birthday. Who knows why? But I've always loved his music. And he's really into UFOs and the crop circles and things. And but what was weird is that when Barbara picked me up and took me to my first crop circle after that, it was called the Stingray. It had appeared the night before. And she said, we're going to one that just happened last night. And we get there, we walk around in it, and then we go to the barge inn. And it's called the Stingray. It looks like a big stingray. And this was in July of 1998. I don't have permission to share my image of it because I did pay for the photo, but I can only do it in live presentations, not anything online. So I can't show it to you, but it looked like a stingray. It was very cool. And I thought, did they make that for me because I'm a sting nut? Like, that is so cool. And I really felt like it was a gift. I really did. I still do. So that was cool. And anyway, I had a wonderful time. I was also doing public speaking. For the LA Times, I was interviewed. I was doing documentary shows, things like that, and still trying to gather evidence. Now, there was this one thing that was kind of neat, and it was a house dust analysis. And these people had found that people that are abductees had weird house dust in their house. I'm going to share this one. And, okay. And so I sent them in samples of my dust, and this was later, like, after I thought the abductions had stopped when I lived in a different house. But they still said that I had some of the strange things. In number 3, it says in the bathroom, they had 4 what they called pseudo crystals and spheres that were 10 microns in size. And on the bookshelf, there were 10 of these spheres. So that was kind of interesting. And this was Marilyn Rubin. Back in the day, this is dated the year 2000. So back then they had a theory about house dust having strange small particles in it. I don't know if that was really alien related or not, but I was trying anything, to get evidence. So that was all going on. And what else here can I show you? I took some pictures of UFOs also during this time. Like here was me. This was a school in Brentwood, California. Can you guys see this? When there's an object here. I'm going to show you the zoom in. I only took a picture of the school. It was called the Archer School for Girls because I was a big David Icke nut, and there was an inverted pentagram star on top of the school. And I was like, that's really creepy. Why do they have an inverted pentagram on top of this school? What's up with that? You know? And when I got home and downloaded the pictures, there was a rod in the picture. You remember the rods, those kind of weird, like this shape? So that's the zoom in of it. So I don't know if that was just a coincidence, or I don't know, MUFON might like to look at those pictures. I have the main picture and then the closer and closer. So that was weird. And okay, but also around this time, after the England trip, my boyfriend and I broke up. Okay, and I started writing for UFO magazine, and I met my husband. And my husband, Jeff Harman, is also an experiencer. So Jeff and I met at a gas station in Malibu, getting gas. It was very fortuitous. And I'm trying to find okay, I thought I had it in the right order. I don't. Anyway, so Jeff and I met while getting gas. And I'll just go back to stop sharing for a minute so I can concentrate. Jeff. So I married my husband, Jeff, and we had a kid. And we moved to Arizona. So this was all after I was writing for UFO Magazine. Here's a picture of UFO Magazine and all the articles I did. This was between 2000 and 2004. And we moved to Arizona in 2005. So I just dropped everything. I was like, I don't want to act. I just want to do UFOs and raise my child and go live somewhere else. Because when Hurricane Katrina hit, and I'm from New Orleans, I was so devastated. In 2005, it freaked me out. I was like, we got to get out of here. We're going to fall off into the ocean. California's next. And, the Gordon Michael Scallion maps and everything. I'm still afraid to live here. I don't like living here, to be honest. I'm terrified of it having earthquakes and all that. But writing for UFO Magazine was amazing because I covered the MUFON meetings and I got to meet all these great experts and have dinner with them and communicate and get their images for the articles. And I wrote other things, not just MUFON meetings, but that was predominantly what I was doing at the time. It was really fun. And but then we did move to Arizona, and I still was going and traveling around like Sedona. Here's a cool picture. I was in Sedona with my mom, and I got this picture without knowing it. Check this out. So we took this picture and didn't see this till the download, but this was in Sedona on Upper Red Rock Road. And check it out. What is that? With the red light on the top and the line on the bottom and the little misty thing in the middle. It's pretty cool. So that happened. And other things, I went to Roswell. And on the way home, the Roswell 50th anniversary in 1997, and I had these anomalous photos. So these are fun. I was in White Sands with my friend who had a good camera, Don Waldrop, who was the head of MUFON back then. We rode together in the car. And you see, I'm on the dune in White Sands, and he said, draw a big alien face, and I'll just take pictures of you running around. And so I drew the big alien face with my foot, and I was yelling at the sky. I was joking around, and I was saying, I dare you to come down here, you bastards. So when we looked at the photos later, right where I'm looking, there's this weird anomaly. Do you see the little white dot, white squiggle?
Yep, we see it.
Okay. And then it happened in another one. So here's another one from the same shoot. See it right over my head?
Yep.
So we didn't see anything at the time, but that was cool. So in Arizona, we lived in Tucson, and Tucson was great. Lots of sky, a great MUFON group over there. I had the best time. I saw a big orange orb following an airplane one night at my house while I was having a MUFON party for everybody. So that was amazing. And but I also started to write my book, which I haven't finished. And at the end of writing it, I had this feeling of, I'm so frustrated because I don't know what this is. And I just prayed. I said, God, please give me the answer to what is happening, because I'm so over it. I want to just not lead anyone astray and finish my book. And what happened is I had this born again Jesus experience. It was very powerful. And I thought it was all demonic. And I went into, it's all demonic, I'm dropping out of UFOs. That's what I did. And I was reading books with that theory that angels, that aliens are demons, and mostly by evangelicals, to be honest. But what did I do? I went back to the Catholic Church, much to the annoyance of my husband, who's a professional astrologer. And I had a crush on the priest, and I was going to Latin Mass with the veil and the Gregorian chant, and I still go. I love it, but I don't go all the time. So that was a very interesting phase, and I found the screen sharing button now. Okay, so that started in 2013, and I was really into like Catholicism and UFOs in ancient art. Like we have all these great examples. Here's some examples. Like, see this thing? This is supposed to be John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, and there's this disc in the sky with the rays coming down. I know some of you have seen all these interesting paintings where they have UFOs in the background. And so it's not, these things in the sky, they drew a circle around it behind this nativity scene with John the Baptist again. It's very interesting to me. And the Catholic Church, to be fair, is very involved with like talking about this subject matter. I know a lot of you are familiar with Diana Pasulka's work, the theologian, but there's also this interesting book by Paul Thigpen that was published. It's a Catholic publishing house, Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Catholic Faith. It's very interesting if you're into reading stuff like that. So that happened, and I just kind of dropped out, and I just went to church all the time, and then we got bored, and we decided to move back to LA. Okay, and my career got going again, so I lucked out. Just trying to tell the story as fast as I can. Okay, here's me on Oscar night. My next big break after I did a bunch of student films to get new clips for my reel because I had aged 10 years and I was in a different category. I got lucky and I was in this movie Vice, which won an Oscar and a bunch of other awards, starring Christian Bale as Dick Cheney. I know a lot of you might have seen it. It was awesome. And so here I am with my husband on Oscar night, going to Oscar parties. And yeah, I had a small part. I played Mary Matalin, and I had like 2 lines, but I had 3 days of working with Christian Bale and Steve Carell. It was so fun, and I made a lot of money, and I was really happy. It was like a huge career peak, even though it was a small part, because it was a huge movie. So that made me very happy. And then here's another like red carpet type thing. And I even wrote Mary Matalin. This is like, doing the red carpet and all that. And it's not that exciting to me now, but back then it was. It was like, oh, this is kind of fun when I was young and skinny. And I wrote Mary Matalin, who is the woman I played, who lives in New Orleans with James Carville. And I said, I really enjoyed playing you in this movie. And she wrote me a letter back, and I got it the day after the Oscars, which was really sweet. She said, oh, you sound really sweet, and best wishes to you. And no, I'm not going to see the movie. That was really funny. I framed it. It's on the wall. So everything was going great. I was doing Shameless. I did one episode, season 10, episode 1, if you want to see it. And you guys can go to my website and see clips and all the acting stuff. And I was winning awards and everything was great. And then COVID hit and ruined everything, right? So everything shut down, and I was doing DoorDash. I was like, I'm not sitting home. I was total conspiracy theorist. I didn't take the shot. I was mad. They had all these crazy rules on the set. It was making me crazy. And then I couldn't work at all. So it was nuts. It was a nuts time, and it kind of, was a huge career break set. But I got back into the internet sleuthing, and I discovered Tartaria subject matter. I don't know if y'all are into Tartaria, this kind of alternative history subculture about looking at buildings differently in history, the timeline and the controllers and the narrative and all that. I highly recommend it. It's very addictive though. and so I started thinking about history differently. And it pulled me back into UFOs. And I went back to meetings, and I went to the UFO Congress in the Phoenix area in 2022. And I got invited to speak at the UFO Con in San Francisco in 2023. And I said yes. And so then I was like, oh, what am I doing? Is God going to be mad at me? Like, what's happening? And I just thought, I think I threw the baby out with the bathwater. So the next thing that happened was, and I'm going to try to share this, but it's a video, so I don't know if videos share well. I was at church in a tent. It was after COVID, but we got too big and we didn't fit in the church anymore. And so we were in a tent. I was sitting in the back, and I was about to go do this talk. It's not loading. It's not. Anyway, I was sitting there and I said, Jesus, if you are working with any good beings in the UFOs, could you please give me a sign? Because I don't want to make you mad going and doing this talk. And I look up and these four objects come out of the clouds, four white objects, and start flying around. And in the middle of mass, and I get my camera out and I get it on camera, and it's on my YouTube channel. It's a short you can watch. It's like a 15-second clip. I took that as my sign. They were white, and I thought they were UFOs. They were really, really high. Some people might think they're birds. I think they were UFOs. But even if they were birds, to me it was a sign. It was like the Holy Spirit because they were white birds. So that was really profound. I showed it to the priest, and he was like, oh my God, because he knows my story. And then I met Chris Bledsoe, and I'll make this big. Okay, so this is me and Chris in Wisconsin at Contact Modalities, but there was an earlier picture too. But I met him at UFOCon in Pasadena when his book first came out. And we really hit it off. And he has a great energy, and I just felt like I kept wanting to be around him. He had this very peaceful energy. And every time I would go hear a lecture, I would just run back to the table and just hang with him. And then he said he needed a ride to the airport the next day. And I said, I want to bring you to the airport. Oh my God. Yes, I can have you in my car for like an hour and a half all to myself. And so I took him to the airport, and we had such a great talk. We became friends. He did my husband's podcast. My husband, Jeff Harmon, has an astrology podcast. Chris was on it. Jeff looked at his chart, and Jeff was on Ryan Bledsoe's podcast, his son. So we became friends. We kept seeing each other at conferences. And my videos of sightings with Chris are also on my YouTube channel, little clips of the sky watches that I've done with him on a couple of occasions at different conferences. So that's on my YouTube. So I'm at a happy place now. And I just want to say I've joined this is another important thing. I've joined Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which is a really cool group here in Hollywood of people that are interested in UFOs. Here's a talk I gave with Yvonne Smith. Yvonne Smith is the one on the right. And it was called Women of the HDA. So this is a really fun group. Paul Hynek is in it. Whitley Strieber's in it. Shirley MacLaine's in it. All these people. And we have events. And we're having a Whitley Strieber event on the 19th or 18th coming up. And so it's a great place to network. I've gotten some documentary roles from it and interviews from it. So I think I got this interview from it. And so it's a wonderful resource for networking with people in the industry that think like you. It's really exciting. So that's happening here. And then I went to Ireland. This is fun. I went to Ireland this summer, and I noticed all these things that to me seemed like they were related to ufology. And one of them was this ancient site. It's like 5,000 years old, of Knowth, Knowth. It's a mound tomb complex in Ireland. And the tombs, these are the tombs, and they have, the big dome on top, and there's a bunch of them. And they have these rocks around the edges with spirals carved all over them. And to me, I was thinking, oh my gosh, it looks like they're like commemorating landed ships. That's what it looks like to me. And they buried their dead in a spaceship looking thing. And I brought it up to the tour guide, this lady, and I said, because she was talking about the Pleiades, and I said, Pleiades? I said, 3 people on this, it was 2 of us. At least 2 of us on this trip are alien abductees, and we were into the Pleiades. And she said, well, I remember being taken out of my bed too. So that was kind of wild. And then I saw artifacts in the museum that also were curious. Like they found these gold balls. They're like 5 inches in diameter, very, very ancient. And they don't know what they were for. And I thought maybe they were trying to commemorate orbs. I don't know. It's a thought. And these other things that look like UFOs. And then I spent the night in a haunted hotel that used to be an insane asylum. And I had my first ghost attack. That was wild because you think there's so much crossover with UFOs and the paranormal, but I had never seen a ghost. My husband's seen ghosts. He's really intuitive. I had never seen a ghost. And, but I was staying in this big mental institution that was known for haunting. It was now a hotel, but it was built in the 1850s something. And in Sligo, Ireland. And I had this thing come at me at night. First, I had a wave of goosebumps, head to toe. That's what woke me up. It was like, oh my God, something's happening. And then I felt something scratching my sheets, like fingernails on my sheets. and it scared me to death, but I could move. I wasn't paralyzed with the aliens. So I reached down and I scratched back. Like, I heard that, and then I went scratch, 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 and then I went tap, tap, tap. And then it went scratch, scratch, scratch again, and it poked me in the arm with one finger. And I was like, that's it. So I screamed, stop in the name of Jesus Christ. And it stopped. And anyway, nobody else on the tour had the ghost, only me. I told the hotel about it. I wrote about it on TripAdvisor. I wrote about it on some other site that is for Irish haunted sites. And that was fascinating to me because it was like the only paranormal thing I've had that's not alien related. That was kind of wild. So that's pretty much my presentation. I'm going to, stop sharing because the prompt is down here, and I'm going to come back to you guys. I am ready for questions. I'm just trying to get my face back on the screen.
That's all right, because we got a guy who asks questions, and boy, does he have the questions, and he's gonna have he's gonna have a doozy for you. He knows all about the
I love it. Yeah, I love all that stuff.
I'm wandering my way back to him. His name is Joe Swenson, a long-time member, and here is Joe and his question.
Okay, hi. Joe.
For your Mill Lab thing,
yeah,
Rick Doty was in charge of a lot of those, and he's now on the UFO circuit, so he may be able to tell you more about it.
Yes, I've heard of him. Yes, I've read quite a bit. I've been told I was in the secret space program, which is terrifying. So there's that.
No, he wasn't in the secret space program.
I've been told. James Gilliland told me I was. So I'm kind of God.
There's been a number of people. In '72, when I was in the military, I was working with aliens in space.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
So I know a little bit about. I was right in, and when I came back, I was right into 120 and back program. But when I was
I've heard of that for sure.
When I was working in space, I built ships for 220 and back programs.
Oh my gosh! I wish y'all could see me. It was really bothering me that I'm. Yeah.
Okay, and
now we can talk.
When I came back, when I was released in '72, I was trained in the Gateway Experience, and I was a remote viewer of the Montauk Project.
Oh, okay. Now I've had a reading with Stuart Swerdlow as well, and he has said that I am in the program as well. Now I didn't mention I had a NASA uncle who passed away, but he worked under Wernher von Braun on the Saturn V and the tethered satellite later on and all these things in Huntsville. And I went and lived with him for a while when I was a kid. I wonder if I got put in a program because of being related to a NASA rocket scientist. It's a possibility. I don't know. I asked him about all this, and he said, Camille, I don't know anything, and if it's true, it's NSA, and they're never going to tell you. And then Chris Bledsoe said, Camille, if your uncle knew anything, he couldn't tell you. He would go to prison. So just forgive him for not telling you if he knows. And my cousin, his daughter, is a payload manager for the space station right now. So I have NASA family. I also, my grandmother, his mother, saw aliens in the hospital when she was there once in Huntsville, and the whole family got angry at me for putting ideas into her head and giving her hallucinations. So I think as far as the lineage factor, my maternal line seems to have this in it. I have both my moms are sisters. I was adopted by my aunt. They're very metaphysical. They're very spiritual people. So I blame my maternal lineage. I'm also Rh negative, which some people say is a thing. I'm Scottish, Irish, English descent mostly, some Belgian apparently. And I don't know. I always am curious as to why me. We look at things like that. So if you have any ideas on that too, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Hey, Camille, it's Dana Louise. How are you?
Hi, Dana.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to have to chat again. Things we've talked in the past, but the Scottish descent and all that kind of stuff, I'd love to talk to you, and because so much of our stories line up, and even the whole NASA stuff. But anyway, I kind of wanted to make more of a comment to the general people listening and everything. I just want to say how brave you are for sharing your story, because as a experiencer myself, an abductee, we talk very quickly or, matter-of-factly about these abductions and everything, but it is a real true trauma. And having a regression is something I don't want to do. And so just kudos to you for having that bravery to do that, because that is really staring down whatever, the devil. And so, I just want people to take a moment and understand your bravery in coming out and telling your story. Because, like I say, we go over it very quickly, but it is a trauma. And just thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I'm not over the trauma, but there are other amazing, wonderful, magical things about all this subject matter and the experiences I've had traveling and meeting people. So it's not all bad. It's part of it's totally amazing and full of nonstop synchronicities. So I'm grateful for what it's opened up in my mind and my reality, despite the traumatic memories. And because I didn't have conscious memories of much, I would have these physical clues, the waking up at a certain time, all these weird things. I had to go get hypnotized to find out more. Some people have conscious contact when they're wide awake when it's happening and they see it, remember it. I thank God, actually, that has not happened to me. I think I would have lost my mind. I think God only gives you what you can handle. So for me, I'm a digger. I had to go digging and get hypnotized. And I've done hypnosis sessions where nothing's come up, too. I've had hypnosis sessions that were duds. So it doesn't always work. But I found it very useful back then in the 90s, actually. Yeah.
Hi, Camilla. I had just one question, actually two questions. The first is, you just stated that you are
RH negative.
Yeah, I've heard that before with people who are abductees or who have potential hybrid connections. It has to do with an immunity to diseases. Is that correct?
That's allegedly one of there's so much on the internet about this, but it's basically the rhesus factor in your blood, with rhesus being a monkey factor. If you're Rh negative, you don't have it. So you don't have this thing that's related to monkeys. And they say that, it's less than 10% of the population of the world has Rh negative blood. It's predominant in the Basque region. It's also predominant in Ireland and Scotland. And I also have hemochromatosis, which is another Irish and Scottish thing. Where I have too much iron in my blood and I have to have blood taken out of me. And my NASA uncle had the same disease. It's genetic. But basically they say that it's often with people with green eyes, with red hair, that are psychic, that have low blood pressure, which I have. What else? Other physical things. But yeah. Low body temperature. I have low blood pressure and low body temperature normally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so my second question is, it sounds like you were abducted about 3 times, potentially more.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the abductions are connected? Do you think the species are connected? Do you think that they have, do you think that they unified and then, got
I do.
interested? Okay.
I think I don't know what all, it's so fragmented. So I have the hybrid removal, whatever that was. I have no memory of being impregnated. I had the triangle, whatever that was. And then I had the MyLab, whatever that was. Now, I do think I was a childhood abductee because I have a lot of red flags that indicate that's probably in my past. Like the fears that I had as a child were paranormal fears. I had trauma as a child. Trauma seems to be a door to this kind of thing. I had mild sex abuse as a child. I was adopted. I got passed around a lot. I had a lot of anger and abandonment issues as a child. So I had allergies, which Whitley Strieber says is another physical thing. I had severe nosebleeds. I had to have my nose cauterized as a child. I would wake up and the pillow would be all blood from my nose. I would have weird dreams. I was afraid of the Sleestaks on the land of the lost, which are reptilians. I was afraid of the creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a reptilian. So I have indicators that stuff is going on in my childhood. It's just totally suppressed. So I think there's a lot more I have not uncovered. I also have these weird dreams recurring of being in a military base that has a glass ceiling and being with like generals, looking at a control board with lights on it, kind of Star Wars-y. And they're saying, we're looking up and they're like, they're coming. And the sky is a grid. It's like got points with lines connecting in these weird ways. There's a big grid in the sky and there's UFOs coming. And so I don't know if that's a memory, a secret space program memory, or a future premonition. I don't know what that is, but I've had it a couple times. I don't know. I don't know. I just keep searching and reading and uh, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot more that I have no clue is happening. And I can only handle so much at a time. Those regressions, I would have to wait like 6 months to do another one. It was so intense. It was like I could just digest one of them for months.
Cool. So I know we've got one hand up in the chat and a question in the chat. I don't know if they're the same person or not, but after Mike Harris, we're going to people in the chat. We'll unmute you so you can talk to Camille directly. But if here's Mike Harris.
Okay.
Hi, Camille.
Hi.
It's Mike Harris. Remember me?
Mike.
I know you see a million people. I met you in Wisconsin last May.
Oh, yeah.
We talked for a while.
I'm clicking to your face.
You won't see my face.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I do. I had so much fun at that event in Wisconsin. Yeah.
But you answered two of my questions. I was going to ask you about childhood. Because usually when people have these experiences, it doesn't start when they're an adult. It's usually when they're a child. And it's often down the maternal line. And you were adopted. So I wonder if that might have been something, down the maternal line. Or if you had anything happen as a child too, which you already talked about.
Yeah. But I was adopted within the family. I was adopted by my aunt. They were sisters.
But I've had a couple dreams in my life that I have written down. I would wake up and text it to myself and go back to sleep. I've saved it in my computer. I've had two dreams about being in underground bases. And I never really thought about that much until just now, that it's weird that I would have had two dreams like that. Yeah. And they're similar. And I grew up near Wright Pat in Ohio. And I just wonder if there's something to it.
Probably. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, they were underground and they were like elevators and many, many stories. And weird animals and like shops and businesses. And
that's what I hear.
So on. So
yeah. I feel for you.
Yeah. Will you be there again this May?
I don't think I'm going to go to Contact in the Desert again because it's close and easy. And it's also in May, so I can't afford to go to both. Last year I was kind of wild this year. I traveled a lot. I went to Ireland. I did all these expensive things. And I just discovered my birth father, which is a whole other thing. But the person we thought was my birth father was not. And I just found out, and I located my actual DNA birth father, and we confirmed it with a paternity test. He's still alive. Yes. And I'm going to meet him in 2 weeks. I'm freaking out. I'm so excited.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. I just read, somebody asked about if I remember the faces of the humans. The faces of the humans, I don't remember. I want to say they were Caucasian. One of them might have had blonde or reddish hair, and I kind of remember a beard, but that's it. I don't remember what the other one looked like.
Okay, so the person with their hand up, I don't know if that's the same one with the question, but we're going to unmute one of them. Who are we unmuting first?
Yeah, I think that's a question.
Francie, we're going to unmute you so you'll be able to talk to Camille. So look for accept unmute popping up. So yeah, Francie. It should be popping up.
All right. Yes, well, interesting segue there, Camille, because that was the question that I had asked, whether you remembered any of the faces of the two gentlemen there. And the reason I ask is that there's one individual, I think it was John Mack, was interviewing people and regressions, and then they put together with some friends a photo mug shots of people. And the one individual that kept on showing up was Dr. John Alexander as part of the people on board the craft. So I was just wondering if you had any familiarity with that name or his image.
Yeah, I know about him through Chris Bledsoe because they're friends. And I know he has a long history of studying the occult and all kinds of things with the Army, I think it is. I mean, obviously he's involved in all this. I don't know to what capacity. And, it's really challenging because from what I've read about secret space program and all this stuff, there's some element of what they're doing is they think they're doing the right thing and they're trying to figure out what's going on and be strategic and save the world and all that. And then there are, crimes that are being committed against people for kidnapping them and doing stuff that they don't know about and using mind control and techniques and all that. So there's part of me understands there could be good aspects to it. And part of me is just incredibly outraged and horrified. Right. So it's a very dark subject, and I mean, my friend who's a nurse was like, why doesn't Trump give us all free healthcare? And I was like, I don't know if he has the power to do that. And where would we get that money? And she said, well, from the Black projects. And I said, that's a great idea. Like that would be awesome. So we have no idea how much money has been used in those Black projects that could have been used for other things.
Well, actually, there's a number that was associated with that, and that's about $6 trillion, and goes through the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland. But that's a whole other thing. Yeah, just because Alexander has gone out of his way to meet Chris Bledsoe, that's not a sign that he's a white hat. There's a whole lot more. And as I said, when just about everyone who went through the mugshot photo book there points out him, and you mention that to him in person, he takes off like a Saturn rocket to the moon. He just gets red and goes absolutely ballistic.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good tell that no, there's something more there that he doesn't want to be completely honest with. So no, the needle for me leans towards black hat, and yeah. So all the best. Thank you for the presentation.
No
Appreciate
problem.
that.
Mm. I have some quick stories I wanted to tell about John Mack and me. The first time I met him at the Roswell anniversary in '97. And I was a big Lawrence of Arabia movie fan. And he had written this book about Lawrence of Arabia, A Prince of Our Disorder, that won a Pulitzer Prize. And I congratulated him on that book and told him I had a fixation on Lawrence of Arabia. And he said, I think the two are related. And he meant Lawrence of Arabia and ufology. But then somebody interrupted us, and I never got to say, what? What are you talking about? Tell me why you said that. So I never heard that. But then another time later, I made him angry at me. There was a fundraiser out here in Malibu, and he was there, and he was fundraising for PEAR, PEAR, I think, or something he was associated with. But he was working with John Rockefeller. And I said, are you worried that, John Rockefeller is, I don't know what I said, but it was basically, I was all in David Icke mode. And I was like, do you trust John Rockefeller? Because he's a Rockefeller. Basically, I was embarrassing him at his own fundraiser. And now that I think of it, I thought I was just being like a journalist, but it was offensive. And he kind of was like, no, he was mad. And then later, when I was pregnant with my son, I was having all these panic attacks that I was going to lose the pregnancy. And I was remembering the alien pregnancy. I was like, well, I guess that was real because it was just like this, and I said, do you know any women who had an alien baby and then a human baby who I might be able to talk to on the phone because I'm having a lot of anxiety about this pregnancy, because this is a real pregnancy and it's giving me like anxiety. And he said, oh, you were the asshole. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, he hates me. But he was nice. And I said, I am so sorry that I ask that question that way. I'm really sorry. And he did give me the number of someone that I could talk to when I was pregnant. So that was the last time I talked to him. But he was so important and so great. And I really regret having, been provocative like that. Sometimes I do things like that. Anyway, those are my John Mack stories.
Another question before your next story?
That's it. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Here's Peter Grandal.
My ex-wife had her baby abducted. And the weird thing is, I'd never heard about this until I read Whitney Strieber's book. And apparently it's common the first trimester, about after 3 months, the baby disappears. And she'd been having alien dreams about the time the baby was conceived. And I came home from work, and I'm kind of psychic myself. Anyway, I saw this vision of blood, and I'm like, where did that come from? And all of a sudden I hear a scream, and she says, I'm bleeding. And so I rushed her to the hospital. They did an ultrasound, and the baby was gone.
Wow.
But the baby was there. The hormones and everything were at the right levels. So, and then it was later on I heard that this does happen. The first semester after 3 months, a lot of times the babies will just disappear.
Right.
And this baby just disappeared. Weird.
That's horrible. When I say hybrid removal, I don't know if that's what it was, because I don't remember any kind of lab scenario of being impregnated by these creatures like some people remember. And I mean, I had a boyfriend. I was sexually active. I was on the pill though. And what I could see through the slats was just flesh color. I couldn't see like a head with big alien eye. I don't know if it was a human fetus or a hybrid fetus. And I may never know, but I was at a Bashar channeling, and Bashar said I had lots of children on the ships. I'm like, okay, if Bashar's trustworthy, it was, a hybrid thing, probably. But I don't know who to trust. I have trust issues. I have major trust issues. That's why I haven't finished my book. I'm always jumping around from one belief to another and changing my mind constantly.
Cool. We got Joe Swenson with another question for you.
Well, I just wanted to say the 3 dots that you were talking about, according to Bill McNeff, and he has the same 3 dots on them, and I'm sure they've disappeared by now.
Yeah, they went away right away.
Yeah, that's what happened. And he was informed that that you were meant to be saved.
Oh, please God, let that be true.
So I wanted to let you know so that might ease your mind a little bit about what they were about.
Thank you so much. I've never heard anyone give me any opinion on those 3 dots. So that's the first, and it's a great one. I hope you're absolutely right. I really do.
Well, I've seen several people with them, and that's been the similar explanation.
Wow.
So
I've never read that anywhere. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, sometime if you want to, you can give me a jingle and I can go into more things for you.
If you would email me, because I'll forget who I'm talking to be honest. You guys understand, I have had a mini stroke, so my brain is a little off from where it used to be. And also I got vertigo on vacation last week, and I still have a little vertigo, so I've been having a rough week.
So it affected your left side?
The stroke was in the right cerebellar.
You got it? Okay.
And right now I have stuffy ears, and that's the vertigo runs in my family too on my mother's side. My mother had it, my grandmother had it.
That's another. I know a number of remote viewers besides myself, and from the 86 Airborne in the 90s, and they all seem to have vertigo as a side effect of it, whatever method they were using then. So, and with me, they used a radar beam at my head to sync me up with Montauk Island when I was doing it.
Wow. I mean, I don't even want to think about what it could have been done to me in secret programs. I just, I have to kind of
there's a number of
function. I have to function in my normal life.
Yeah. There's a number of people around that I've run into that have been part of different projects. So.
Yeah, I've been told I've been in them too. Thank you for that. That's a gem of knowledge. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and when he said that too, what occurred to me is you mentioned Catholic, you mentioned Irish. Well, Irish, the 3-leaf clover, the Trinity, all those things that really kind of connects together with the Catholicism and the Trinity and all that stuff. So I thought it was really interesting.
I agree.
Any other questions? Oh, question in the room over here. Hang on. We got another question for you. And I didn't get your name?
Camille?
No, not you. AJ. Here's a question from AJ.
Hi, so you mentioned a little bit how there's connections between the paranormal and aliens. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, maybe.
Well, I first started thinking about that. There are a lot of things, but I was hanging out with Daryl Sims and a guy named Barry Taft, and Barry Taft was a paranormal investigator who the movie The Entity with Barbara Hershey was based on his research at UCLA on a woman that was having ghost rape. A ghost was coming to her and raping her in Culver City at her house. And they made a movie about it. And Barry was talking with Daryl about the similarities of abduction and ghost attacks and other paranormal things. Like a lot of abductees will have apports, like objects moving and disappearing and reappearing in their house. Even in the vampire mythology, you have a being that comes in the night, can appear out of the mist. There's a sexual element to it, and it mind controls you. It makes you feel like you are part of it in some way, and it leaves marks on your body like bites, right? So there's just a lot of overlap. I know even Anne Rice, I was really into Anne Rice. Like, why was I into vampire books as a child? What's up with that? And, well, not a child, but high school. I was really into Anne Rice. And her stuff is, dark vampire stuff. And I read a biography about her, and I knew her. I met her in New Orleans a few times. I knew her son. Her son came to see me in Richard III. And but Anne once was interviewed. I knew she was into UFOs for many reasons, but she said she had a coma. She fell into a coma and woke up in a hospital. She was diabetic and didn't know it. And so she went into a coma. She found out she was diabetic when she came out of it. But she said, at first I thought I was abducted by aliens. But then I realized the aliens would never have such hideous ceiling tiles. I thought that was really funny. But it made me know she was interested in the subject. And then I found out 2 other ways that she was interested in the subject. So the occult, there's the Collins elite, right? That group in the 50s that was tasked by the government to find out any connections between the occult and alien or UFO appearances. And they found a strong correlation between places on the ground where there were active occult groups doing whatever and the UFOs appearing. And then you've got Jack Parsons with his whole occult thing with the rockets and the being lamb that he was channeling and all this that looked like a gray. And just a lot. This is very much a spiritual thing as well as a physical thing, So I caution people, if you're playing with fire, you might get burned.
Good advice. Questions in the room, questions in the chat. We got a few more minutes left. Questions in the room, questions in the chat. If you're on the chat, we can unmute you so you can talk to Camille directly.
I have one more short story to tell.
Go for it. Yes, definitely.
Okay. I have had all these amazing synchronicities, right? So one day I was filming a movie where we're a bunch of girls in bikinis and we were cold. We were waiting to shoot our scene and they had us in this RV at the beach and we're like sitting around freezing in our bikinis. And I start talking about aliens because I always do. I'm very extroverted, but it gives me rewards. So this girl said, oh, we got to talk. So we go down the hall. She goes, I had the blue beam. And I got to tell you a story. I said, please. And she said, well, I'm from Maryland, and my dad was very high up in the NSA. And she said, and he took me camping when I was a little girl, and we built a fire, and we were looking at the sky. And he said to me, what if I told you God was an alien, and this was all just a big experiment? And I was like, oh, my God. Thank you for telling me that story. That is so interesting. What did he know? So I look at everything. I'm very open-minded. I'm a terrible Catholic because I don't follow the rules very well. I'm married to an astrologer. I'm not in a state of grace, whatever. But like people talking about simulation theory and all of this, the holographic universe and this and that. I mean, I read about all that. I'm not totally closed down to where I won't read all these other theories of reality. So God is bigger than religion for sure. So I've just had these little nuggets of interesting thoughts to ponder come my way because I do things like put bumper stickers on my car and wear t-shirts and people come up to me and talk to me and I hear all these amazing things. So, yeah.
Oh, got another question. Hang on. Risa has a question. Or do you have one on the chat too? There's Risa.
Okay, so you brought up Bashar, and so now I have to ask you about that.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, a gentleman named Daryl Anka has been channeling an ET hybrid named Bashar for the past almost a long time, 30 years. And I've followed him and I find his work fascinating. And I guess my question to you is, you actually went and saw him live. You got to talk to him, which is amazing. He has a 4-step formula that's, I think, pretty cool. And I have been trying to kind of connect into that. Does his story and his formula and what he says, his message about raising your frequency, this idea about timelines, it's a lot to ingest. Does it ring true to you, and what do you make of it?
I was really into Bashar in the mid 90s when all this started happening to me. I was going to small group meetings out in Ventura Boulevard at some psychic eye bookshop or something. I read his book, the first book anyway, and I was going to the channelings, and but I always have trust issues. I have trust issues with everyone. But I found his information very interesting and very helpful to a lot of people. And he's funny. And he did tell me some very specific things. Like I asked him about sleep paralysis, and he said sleep paralysis is the sensation your body feels when it's changing dimensions, which was very interesting. And he told me that I had multiple children on the ships. And there were some other things about my relatives. I remember seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind with my mom, my adopted mom, the aunt, when we were all kids. And when we got back to the car, she couldn't start the car. You know, we came out of the movie kind of all blown away, and she was emotional. And she said, I want you all, she looked at us, me and my brother and sister, and she said, I want you to know that if the spaceship comes, I'm going. And we were like, oh my God, Mom, thanks a lot. And so I asked him about that. And he said what she really meant was when the spaceship comes, I go, and it comes and I go, and it comes and I go. Like that she was a shielded, you know, she didn't know she was an experiencer. And my mom is totally into the Monroe Institute, and she lives in Virginia. I just came back from seeing her and my other mom. We were all there for my mom's 80th birthday. And she's totally metaphysical. She's, you know, always listening to meditations and stuff. So it's the maternal line. It's the Macphersons and the LeBlanc, whatever made my mom and uncle and all them. Yeah, from Louisiana.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any other questions in the room. I don't.
Okay.
Oh, we do have one more question in the room. One last question before we wrap it up. Here you go.
Yeah, hi, Camille. Again, thanks for your presentation. It was really good. Just wanted to know if you're familiar with a gal by the name of Cooley Weber.
No.
As in like Cooley. Well, she does mostly stuff that's on individuals that got abducted. And she also does, her program is called STAR, Support for Those Abducted.
Okay.
The acronym, what it stands for. Just wanted to know if you knew of her and maybe something to turn on to. And I think some other individuals, because I'm new here also.
Cooley Weber. I wish I brought a pen. I should have brought a pen. You guys are giving me all these cool things to remember.
Yeah, well, the girl's name is Cooley Weber.
Okay.
Yeah, but
that sounds good.
My name is Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah,
I don't know about her.
And thanks again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Minnesota MUFON. I don't know about you, but I thought that was a great presentation. We're going to make some noise for Camille. Come on, make some noise. And unmute those people so they can make some noise online. Peter, unmute those people so they make some noise online. Peter, unmute those people so they can make some noise online. And Peter's not going to listen to me, so make some noise online anyways. You can do the clapping reaction. So, okay, thank you very much, Camille. We really appreciate having you. It was fantastic. And you'll be able to see all this because we've got it recorded. We'll put it on YouTube so you can go back and check everything that you missed. Yeah,
okay.
So we're glad to have you. And thank you all for being here at our first meeting of 2026. Come back here next month. We're going to have another person from the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. We've got Ryan Wood coming in, or not coming in, but he'll be on Zoom like this too. So looking forward to that. Thank you all for being here. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of each other. Come on back next month. We'll see you next time. And we are out of here.
Thank you.